Malaga Island, a 42-acre coastal island located at the mouth of the New Meadows River in Phippsburg, Maine, is serene and beautiful. The island is a quick 10-minute boat ride from the mainland.
Looking at this uninhabited island, there is hardly anything to suggest the island's little-known past. Malaga Island is where one of the state of Maine's most disgraceful official acts ever occurred.
The transforming legacy of Malaga Island.
The legacy of Malaga Island has transformed over time from shame and embarrassment of the residents of Malaga Island to one of acknowledgement of wrongdoing by the state of Maine.
Malaga Island was first established in the 1860s as a mixed-race community of African Americans and whites. Many families lived together on this island. This fishing community, as well as other fishing communities along the coast of Maine, was poor. From 1860 to 1912, more than 16 families moved on and off the island. During this time, the shipbuilding and fishing industries declined.
It was a difficult economic time, but Maine tourism was growing. Malaga Island received financial help from the town of Phippsburg, Maine.
In 1891, Malaga Island was using 78% of Phippsburg's money allotted to support the poor. That year, Phippsburg petitioned the state of Maine claiming that Malaga Island belonged to nearby Harpswell. The state of Maine disagreed and Malaga Island was designated to be part of Phippsburg. Legal disputes continued until 1905 when the Malagites became wards of the state. In 1906, Mr. and Mrs. Lane, missionaries from Massachusetts and summering on nearby Horse Island, opened a school in one of the houses on Malaga Island. The Lane family fundraised for several years and in 1908 opened a one-room schoolhouse on Malaga Island. During the fundraising efforts for the new school, Malaga Island became notorious. There are many stories published nationally about the living conditions and the loose morals of the residents of Malaga Island. Most of the stories were greatly exaggerated and are examples of yellow journalism. These articles embarrassed the state of Maine. Malaga Island had a very bad reputation. In 1910, all of the islands near Malaga Island were privately owned as summer vacation homes. Malaga Island was seen as a blemish along the Maine coast. In 1911, George Pease, state agent, submitted a report with recommendations for Malaga Island. He recommended that the state of Maine purchase Malaga Island. The report included racist language, a proposal for eviction, and listed by name island residents who should be institutionalized. There was no mention of aiding the residents in finding new homes. That same year, the Perry family sold Malaga Island for $400 to the state of Maine.
Soon after the sale, the state of Maine ordered the eviction of the Malaga Island residents.
All residents were told they must vacate the island by July 1, 1912. At the same time the state gave notice of the eviction, they institutionalized the Marks family and Ms. Anna Parker in the Maine School for the Feeble-Minded. In June of 1912, the state gave $100 to each household remaining on Malaga Island to encourage them to move on. On July 1, 1912, state agent George Pease arrived on Malaga Island to find that all the residents in most buildings were gone.
The only evidence of the community that remained was the schoolhouse and the graveyard.
The state also disinterred 17 graves from the island and carelessly combined all 17 graves into 5. These 5 graves can be found at Pineland, which was once the Maine School for the Feeble-Minded, the school where many of the island residents were institutionalized. Even though the island was sold many times, nobody ever lived on Malaga Island again. This fact has made the island an ideal spot for archaeological digs. Many artifacts have been found which disprove the claims of the articles written about Malaga Island during the early 1900s. Why were the residents evicted?
One reason the Malagites were evicted was the economic downturn in the fishing industry. The Malagites, a fishing community, had less food to eat, less fish to sell, and their community became an even greater burden on Phippsburg. Another reason for the eviction is the prejudice toward the mixed-race community. The eugenics movement was at its peak in the United States at this time. Eugenicists were concerned with the purity of the Anglo-Saxon gene pool. They believed that poverty and all social evils such as immorality and crime were inherited traits. The state of Maine had become embarrassed by the coverage about Malaga Island and how the community was depicted in newspapers and magazines as a depraved, immoral community. After the submission of the state agent's report, Governor Plaisted decided to visit the island and made this statement about what he found there.
The best plan would be to burn down the shacks with all their filth. Certainly conditions are not credible to our state, and we ought not to have such things near our front doors. And I do not think a like thing can be found in Maine.
Soon after the governor's visit, the state of Maine called for the eviction of the residents. The newspapers at the time praised the state of Maine for redeeming the Maine coast through the eviction of Malaga Island. What is the legacy of Malaga Island?
I think up until about 10, 15 years ago, the legacy of Malaga Island was something that was still very embarrassing that nobody wanted to acknowledge. Now, we've had 2 governors issue apologies. We've had the state legislature issue an apology. And we've had, because of the museum exhibit, we've had descendants become a little bit more comfortable with their own history and discovering their own history, and families finally being willing to talk about it. So I think it's becoming more of a legacy of acknowledgement of something that was wrong, that shouldn't happen again, something to learn from.
The legacy of Malaga Island began to transform in the 1980s with this article written for Down East magazine. It states, "In search for historical truth, the real story is frustratingly hard to come by. Records are sketchy and existing ones are clouded by contemporary prejudice. But from the evidence, one thing is clear. The saga of Malaga Island, which ended with the eviction of its inhabitants in 1912, remains a disreputable episode in Maine history." This article is one of the first times that Maine acknowledges that the eviction of Malaga Island was a mistake. In 2010, the Maine legislature formally expressed profound regret at the expulsion of Malaga Island residents. In this document, they listed all the believed causes of eviction and resolved to rebuke this past and rededicate the future to the ideals of tolerance, independence, and equality of all people. In September of 2010, Governor Baldacci visited Malaga Island. Malaga Island was being added to the Maine Freedom Trail as part of this organization's mission, which is to advance public understanding of social and economic justice, or injustice, as was the case on Malaga Island. At this dedication of the marker for the Freedom Trail, Governor Baldacci apologized to the descendants of Benjamin Darling, the patriarch of the families on Malaga Island. Here is a clip of the speech and a Darling ancestor's reaction to the apology.
To the descendants of Benjamin Darling, let me just say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what was done. It wasn't right, and we're raised better than that. We're better people than that, and I'm sorry about that. You're very welcome. We're all in this together.
When he said that, I am sorry. When he said that, no joke, the clouds parted, the sun shone down in slanting rays all over us, and the aspens started quaking. And we all looked, and it was like something was broken. The wrong had been cut right through, and that was like, finally, peace, rest.
From her reaction, it is obvious that the legacy of Malaga Island has transformed over time. In 2012, the Maine State Museum did an exhibit called Malaga Island Fragmented Lives. This exhibit was conscious of telling the story about the Malaga community and about the lives of individuals, and not merely focusing on the tragic story of the eviction. The exhibit helped the Malaga story become an accepted, if grim, part of Maine's history. As Kate McBride, the curator of the Fragmented Lives exhibit, said, "The legacy of Malaga Island today is an acknowledgement of something that was wrong and finally an event to learn from." The Maine Coast Heritage Trust purchased Malaga Island in 2001. After purchasing the island, the trust opened it to archaeological excavation by the University of Maine. The artifacts were donated to the Maine State Museum and were viewed in the exhibit and can still be viewed online and by appointment at the museum. The trust allows visitors to the island and has a booth with a sign and pamphlets telling the story of Malaga Island. Today, many Maine students are learning about Malaga Island in their Maine study classes. At the turn of the century, Malaga Island was viewed by the state of Maine as an embarrassment and a blemish along the Maine coast. Today, the prejudice behind the eviction of Malaga Island is seen as an embarrassment. The apologies made by our governors and legislatures indicate this. The final legacy of Malaga Island is that when a society or government does something wrong, they must do everything in their ability to recognize it and admit to their mistakes, and to avoid making similar mistakes in the future.